Hi guys, welcome to the Federalism Notes. This is topic 3.3. So what is federalism? Well, federalism is the concept that you can have two types of government or more working together and simultaneously. Each set will have its own set of powers with a few select shared powers. So an example would be from this Venn diagram. You have national declare war, state establish and maintain schools, shared you have through the middle. So we have armed forces regulating interstate and foreign trade, admitting new states or new territory, establishing post offices, setting weights and measure, coining money, establish foreign policy, making laws necessary and proper. State can do local governments regulate business within the state. They can make marriage laws. There are guidelines on marriage. Provide for public safety and assume powers not delegated to the national. And you have certain things that both need to be able to do to maintain law and order, to collect and charge taxes, to borrow money, banks, court systems, and the public welfare. We have two types of federalism: cooperative federalism and dual federalism. It's really easier to think of them as cakes. So cooperative is this marble cake where it's all mixed together. Dual is where each layer is very specific and each side does something specific, okay? The United States is a marble cake federalism. So why did the framers choose this system of government? Well, basically they said to limit the powers, they had to divide the powers. And they were still a little leery on federal control initially. When we look at the Articles of Confederation, they're leery of that control because of King George. However, they would find out that they had to have some kind of strong central government. So by dividing the powers between the federal and the states would allow or would prevent one side or the other becoming too powerful, because each one has certain powers that they're denied. Okay. It also allows smaller governments. So you've got the federal state, but then you've got like the county, the township, the town. It allows them to have some ability to handle their local issues, and the national government can deal with the bigger issues at the national level. So it gives flexibility, allows some differences. That's why if you go from one state to another, you have different things such as, the most obvious one is road systems. That you may have certain laws in some states or not as well. So it allows that little bit differences there. It also allows the federal government to respond to big situations quickly. Probably the easiest example would be like 9/11. So delegated powers are those powers that are delegated by the constitutions. So it tells you what you can and can't do. But they're broken down into three categories. You have express. This means that it is written. You only have this power as it's written. Then you have some implied powers and some inherent powers. So let's start with expressed. So, for example, in Article 1, it says that the Congress has the power to coin money, raise armed forces, and levy taxes. So we have other express powers to the President in Article 2 and the Supreme Court in Article 3. As we progress in the course, we'll get more detailed on those. So there are implied powers. You should know what implied means, which basically means it's not necessarily specifically stated, but it's assumed assume that what's stated in the Constitution allows you to reasonably suggest how to expand certain powers. So, for example, we have the necessary and proper clause. This video clip I have linked to your hybrid day agenda so that you can watch it if you need more explanation. So this article says the Congress has the power to make all laws necessary and proper. Well, who defines necessary and proper? Well, ultimately, Congress does. unless the Supreme Court gets involved and they can overturn anything that they state. So they may create a law and then say, well, this is necessary, or it falls under the necessary and proper law or clause, even though it's not specifically stated in the Constitution. So examples would be building the interstate highway system, banning racial discrimination. You could also put other forms of discrimination as well there. So these are implied that these laws are okay. So that's for the Supreme Court to decide if these will function. Then you have inherent powers. These are powers that are given to the national government because we are a single country. Every government has certain powers that are not based on their constitution, which are these. And so, for example, if we wanted to expand the United States, so good example would be making Puerto Rico or Washington, D.C. a state. Although Washington, D.C. is already part of our physical landscape, but separating it out. Puerto Rico is under our protection, but if we want to make it a state, that has to be done at the national level. Puerto Rico has already approved it. They would like to become a state, but they are waiting on our national government to vote them in as a state. Probably D.C. will be first. Okay. The idea of regulating immigration and immigration, that is, immigration policies at the national level. Typically we have a very detailed way in which we welcome immigrants and to ensure their success and how they stay and what have you. They have rules and regulations that they have to follow. However, in the last, 10 years or so or 4 years or so, the immigration regulations are kind of all over the place. So we have reserve powers. This means that any powers that are not specifically given to the national government and is not denied to the states. Okay, so you have police power, you have public health. So right now, COVID-19 would be a prime example, and safety and general welfare. So that power comes at the state level. So that's why you can go to some states and they have a mask requirement. Some states don't. Some states close their entire state down, whereas some it was just cities. So that's more, that's not at the federal level. Now, can the federal government do that? Yes, even in a public health safety situation, but it hasn't really been done since the flu pandemic in 1918. We have concurrent powers. These are things that are shared. So here's a good little diagram. Powers delegated to the national government, to the state government, and shared. So this is concurrent. Okay. So examples would be taxes, borrowing money, establishing courts, police, your fire department, etc., etc. So the local governments can only use these powers if their state allows them. And on the next slide is a larger image of the Venn diagram that we saw a few slides back that shows what's the powers fall under delegated, concurrent, and reserved. Our final slide is on the Supremacy Clause, and on your hybrid page, there is a video link. It's like, I think 3-4 minutes, and has a few questions that will help explain this a little bit more. So we know that the Constitution is the law of the land, and sometimes states in the federal level will conflict in what they think that means. So states will set up laws, then the federal government will overturn it. Most recent example of that would be when Obama was president. States had laws that banned gay marriage during his presidency. Now, he was not necessarily responsible for this or what have you, but he spoke out in favor of gay marriage. The Supreme Court determined that the law being distinguished between a man and woman was unconstitutional. So that meant every state that banned gay marriage now had to accept gay marriage. Okay? Because once the Supreme Court settled the conflict, it was done. Another example here would be McCullough versus Maryland. It ruled that where federal and state laws conflict, the federal law wins if it's constitutional. So again, going back to the gay marriage law and gay marriage being legal, because the federal won because they determined the states were in conflict and the federal was more constitutional. So again, there is a link on your Hybrid at Home learning page. Let me get to it real quick. For the Supremacy Clause. So here's the assignment right here. These are those slides that were in your PowerPoint. So if you would like to watch them to expand more, you can. But I just didn't want to make your video too long. If you have any questions or concerns, let me know. And on Friday, if you have any questions or concerns or you need me to help you walk through things, send me a text on Remind or an email, and I will set up a one-on-one meeting. Have a great day.